So what is the differences between life cycle thinking, life cycle assessment, and organization life cycle assessment? Life cycle thinking consists of the theoretical approach that investigates the improvement and reduction in the impact of the service and the product at all stages of the processing, including the extraction, while the life cycle assessment is about the completion evaluation of the input, output, and the potential environmental impact of the product system throughout its life cycle. And organization life cycle assessment is about the evaluation and completion of the input, output, and potential environmental impact of the activity associated with the organization as a whole, or a portion share of adopting a life cycle perspective. Overall, based on this article, life cycle thinking it's much broader than this thing about the qualitative and quantitative, among the which life cycle assessment is a very prominent one, and which continue to involve of mapping life cycle aspects.
This paper discussed the methodological of developments of social life cycle assessment S-Lca in the past decade. S-Lca technique was established in order to evaluate the positive or negative effects on social and economic factors across the course of a product's life cycle. This S-Lca framework, which consists of the definition of goals and scope, functional units, system boundaries, and protected area subcategories, is specific to it. Additionally, it includes a life cycle inventory analysis that requires general and site-specific data and a social hotspot database or SHDB. The second method is life cycle impact assessment S-Lca, which has two techniques used in this study. Since S-Lca is still in its early stages, there is not much agreement on the approach that needs to be used in various situations.
Once again, I'm going to talk about social life cycle assessment, S-Lca. The topic is role of stakeholders. There are 6 stakeholders involved in S-Lca, which is community, workers, suppliers and partners, consumers, and also society holder refers to individual or group that has an interest in activities or decisions of an organization. For stakeholder category or stakeholder group, it is mean cluster of stakeholders that are expected to have similar interests due to their similar relationship to investigated product systems. There are different social themes for each stakeholder group. For workers, the example is freedom of association and collective bargaining related to 3 SDGs, while for local community, it is access to material resources related to 2 SDGs. For the value chain actor stakeholder group, it is about the supplier relationship which consider the potential or unintended consequences. Next is for consumer stakeholder group, it is about health and safety to identify the scope. Next is for the society stakeholder group, it involves the public commitment sustainability issues which relate to reduce organizational impact. Lastly is for children stakeholder group. The example is education in the local community which to assess the present quality, level and type of education provided to the children. That's all from me. Thank you.
In 2020, the UNEP updated the guidelines for social life cycle assessment of products and Organization 2020 guidelines. And what it said that S-Lca is a technique that assesses the social and socio-economic aspects of products and their potential positive and negative impact throughout the life cycle. These are the examples of S-Lca framework of large-scale transportation infrastructure in China.
Here is an example of circular water economy. Water use can also be mapped onto a linear economy model. This linear approach to water use is causing economic and environmental problems as well as creating an unreliable water supply.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to share a case study about social life cycle assessment of product value chain under a circular economy approach in the plastic packaging sector. This study describes the theoretical framework and the impact assessment approach for the social life cycle assessment of product value chain under a circular economy approach by applying a scoring system in different subcategories and indicators considering the plastic packaging sector. Here you can see a diagram of the value chain for the substitution of a fossil plastic by a biodegradable one, including stages and stakeholders. 12 subcategories have been chosen because of their relevance to the case study related to the impact on the labor conditions, consumers' well-being, end of life of the product, local community condition, technology and suppliers, among others. The validation of the methodology in the plastic packaging sector is done by considering the main stakeholders involved in the value chain and the particularities of the sector. As a conclusion, the social impact assessment based on the life cycle approach developed in this study may result in being applicable to evaluate the social impacts of the innovation under a circular economy approach in the future studies. This methodology allows to evaluate not only material changes but also behaviors. This is because of the use of qualitative, quantitative, and semi-quantitative indicators. Moreover, it integrates all the stakeholders in just one vision, considering a series of indicators for each subcategories. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Good day, my name is Priyadashini S-Lca, and today I am going to talk about complementary social life cycle assessment to reach sustainable development goals by a case study from Malaysian oil palm industry, where the study aims to assess the social impact of workers in Malaysian oil palm industry using S-Lca and to indicate the connection with the relevant SDGs. As for the result, the overall finding from the interview for the working hour subcategory showed that this subcategory required improvement for the well-being of workers. Certain workers from the plantation subsector had raised concern on their challenging and time-consuming tasks, especially during a pruning and harvesting activities which require them to move on to an area to another. It can be understood that such activities require skill training and proper tools of overall improvement of the plantation activity. As for the conclusion, the overall finding shows that S-Lca is able to gauge the social impact of the Malaysian oil palm industry, where complementing S-Lca with SDGs seems necessary and comprehensive S-Lca study of the Malaysian oil palm industry is required.
Social Life Cycle Assessment. What is social life assessment? S-Lca is a technique to evaluate positive and negative social impact of a product or organization. This examines the gathering and preparation of raw materials, manufacturing, distribution, usage, reuse, maintenance, recycling, and final disposal at the end of life. An S-Lca will provide social information for decision makers, encourage the exchange of ideas about production and consumption in all aspects of society, improve work efficiency, and finally aim at benefits of stakeholders. Let's look into what are the importance of S-Lca in sustainability assessment. S-Lca is important to ensure holistic sustainability assessments. S-Lca gives you a strategic scope of social and ecological sustainability at the product level. S-Lca helps to assess the social and sociological aspects of products, their actual and potential positive as well as negative impacts. This looks at the extraction and processing of raw materials, manufacturing, distribution, use, reuse, maintenance, recycling, and final disposal. Similarities between social and environmental LCA of products. They share the ISO frame 14040/44. They required large amounts of data. Inventories per functional unit, for example 1,000 t-shirts. They identify critical points, egg palm and oil farming. Finally, powerful results for decision-taking, for example LCA studies, third-party revision is recommended. Next is the difference between social and environmental LCA of products. First is product utility, which implies that you define not just in terms of numbers, such as 1,000 t-shirts, but also in terms of the product's usefulness and cost in a way that will benefit the consumer. This definition of product utility might include a number of different elements, depending on the product. Second, stakeholders and consideration of concern. You must identify the stakeholder and take into account their viewpoints and concerns. In terms of the environment, this is not necessary. Third, it is not only quantitative. In social LCA, there are both quantitative and qualitative data that are utilized for this evaluation and may be crucial information that will be used for the final outcome. Fourth, information about the place, in situ. On social LCA, the information about the area or the website is more important. In addition to these disparities, organizations that participate in social LCA are taken into account while evaluating their administration or other services that do not directly affect the product. The generation of jobs is a highly good outcome of social LCA. Because businesses engage in the manufacturing process, it may be training or education boost the abilities of the workforce. This is regarded as instruction and training. Additionally, social LCA encourages an iterative method. It indicates your first attempt at a source's essay. It is likely to be utilized primarily internally to assess our current situation and identify any significant discoveries or potential problem areas. After that, you made several improvements to the circumstance in order to produce outcomes that might be communicated outside. Iteration process characteristics are the topic here. Identify one social subcategory of impact per stakeholder group in the value chain of mobiles produced, workers, consumers, actors in value chain, children, society and community.
One social subcategory of impact per stakeholder group in the value chain of workers is child labor. Meanwhile, for consumers is safety and healthy for living condition, for actors in value chain is fair completion, for children is health and safety, society is public commitment to sustainability, topics for community is children health safety as consumer.
Why social life cycle assessment, S-Lca, are important. Social life cycle assessment, S-Lca, is an evaluation tool used to evaluate potential positive or negative effects of a product in its whole life cycle and social aspect, including the process of raw material mining, production, distribution, application, reuse, maintenance, recycling, and final disposal. Other than that, it's also a novel methodology to address the social impacts of products and services along their life cycle.